How to have fun anytime, anywhere. Step 1. Go to ChumbaCasino.com.
ChumbaCasino.com. Got it.
Step 2. Collect your welcome bonus.
Come to Papa welcome bonus.
Step 3. Play hundreds of casino-style games for free.
That's a lot of games. All for free?
Step 4. Unleash your excitement.
Woohoo!
Chumba Casino has been delivering thrills for over a decade. So claim your free welcome bonus now and live the Chumba life. Visit ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
With so many options, why choose Arizona State University?
For me, the only online option was ASU because of the quality. Their faculty was really involved with their students and care about your personal journey. The dedication to my personal development from my professors, that's been extremely valuable to me.
Earn your degree from the nation's most innovative university. Online. That's a degree better. Explore more than 300 undergraduate, graduate, and certificate programs at asuonline.asu.edu.
This is your You Make a Mess, somebody else gets a chance and has to clean it up. Leader Fan Radio Network.
Tweet that.
And KFAN. That's KFAN.com. 2 minutes, 12 seconds past the hour of 3 o'clock Central Standard Time. We welcome you back. It's a Monday edition. It's a President's Day edition of the Bumper to Bumper Afternoon Aardvark. We will be with you all the way till 6:30 tonight. Is that correct?
It's a full week this week.
A full week that starts right now. Guardsy and me reunited. You were out Friday, were you not?
I was in Friday. You were out Friday.
That's right. I was out Friday.
I was
Thursday,
out
you were in
Thursday.
Columbus, Ohio.
Yep.
So we're reunited once again, and as the Peaches and Herb song suggests, it certainly feels so damn good. 2 outstanding guests today, including Johnny Athletic, scheduled for, I believe, is it 5:30?
Correct.
And Double T, Trent Tucker, will join in about 1/2 hour. Trent Tucker at 3:30. We will keep you abreast of a story that I'm assuming Dan from Woodbury touched on. A commuter jet. Technically, it's under the Delta name, but it's, I think, run by Delta, but Endeavor is the commuter company, a commuter airliner, and their jet from the Twin Cities of Minneapolis and St. Paul ends up flipped in Toronto, on the ground, Toronto, Ontario. The early reports seem to indicate, I think, there may be some injuries, but no catastrophe, because it looks like there's every reason to think there could have been a catastrophe. But we'll keep you informed on the latest information on this particular story. And, Guardsy, it's already started, and I guess we shouldn't be surprised. It's, we had the thing in Washington, near Reagan, right?
Yep.
We had... I'm putting 2 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 9 and getting, I don't know what that number would be. We've got a real problem suddenly when it comes to air traffic or air travel in the United States of America. I ain't going to do that yet. I'm not. It's juicy. It's very inviting, but I ain't going there yet. The question I always have is, and this has been discussed the last few years, there was concern that a dramatically outstanding margin for error was being reduced, was shrinking. And that, I think, is always worthy of reporting and paying attention to and seeing, okay, what might that lead to? Whether that has a damn thing to do, even that has a damn thing to do with this latest story, no idea, but get ready for it, brace for it.
Oh, it's happening.
And you're going to be told, again, do I need to say it? I don't have any dog in the fight. I mean, I just got off an airplane from St. Louis, Missouri. More on that later. But I don't have a dog in the fight. We do know still it's exponentially the safest way to travel, right? We still know that, or are we going to pretend that's not even true? Are we going to take away all those numbers now? Because we're in a stretch where some concerning things have all taken place within a short period of time.
Yeah, we're probably going to throw those numbers out. At least some people will. I will tell you that about 10 minutes ago, the FAA confirmed that all 80 passengers and crew members were able to evacuate.
Outstanding.
The regional jet, the CRJ 900, as they say in the business.
Yeah,
so
which
Kyle
we've all
Potter,
flown. I mean, chances are...
I flew one a couple weeks ago.
I mean, that's the one you're going to likely for a lot of, in close or closer stops. That's what you're going to fly. I mean, that's the business. Now, once upon a time, people for short distances had to fly something called a prop plane. They had propellers that you could see.
I remember those.
Remember those?
Oh, yeah, I took a lot of them.
A little choppy. Could be a little choppier than your average jet. But nevertheless, that's good news that is indeed taking place. And I'm sure the reports are up to 8 injured, according to CNN. And I don't know. What's interesting is, to this point, I don't think any video has surfaced. Usually there's video on everything now.
Right.
So I don't know if it exists and it hasn't been released, or if there is any video of the obvious question: how in the hell does a plane get flipped like that? And the belly end up facing the sky in what looks to be partly cloudy conditions, although I don't know what was the case when that plane was attempting to land. So as we get more information on it, we'll pass it along to you to be part of the discussion. I mentioned off the top of the program that we are indeed, Joe, when you make a mess, somebody else gets to clean it up, leader. It's the first thought that came to my head, and because great minds think alike, it's the first thought that came to Charles Barkley's head, too. Many of you have heard that Draymond Green went on a rant. I think it was yesterday. I don't know exactly when, regarding all these changes to the NBA All-Star Weekend, especially, a series of games that involves something called the Rising Stars, correct?
Yes.
And the Rising Stars ended up competing on Sunday. And this was, I believe, on the TNT broadcast last night. You work all year to be an all-star, and you get to play up to 40 points, up to 40 as in points, because that was the new rule. Rather than with a clock, you're trying to get to 40, and you're done. This is so unfair to Victor Wembanyama, who just took this game really seriously. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who just took this game really seriously. When you talk about chasing after the points records, Melo and Kobe and all those guys who have had great scoring nights, they don't get the opportunity to do that with this game. Also, we can watch some rising stars. We're about to watch the Olympic team. Now we get the treat of watching the Olympic team play against a U19 team. Come on. What are we doing? This is ridiculous. Well, Charles Barkley got it right. It is ridiculous. But the players themselves, maybe not Draymond in particular, but the players themselves made the mess that somebody else said, all right, we're going to clean it up. You're leaving us with there are no good options. The best option, I've said for 5 years, is end it. Burn the whole thing down, eliminate it, or simply make it a weekend where you bring in all the beautiful people, muckety mucks, and let them party for 72 hours in a row. Pick a city, get some bands to come in.
Yep.
Don't even bother with the pretense of basketball, because it has nothing to do with basketball. But if you're going to keep doing it, there's only one reason why this got as gimmicky as it did. I saw this yesterday. I meant to respond to it. Somebody said, why can't we just have East versus West and, whatever happened to East versus West and, some surprisingly competitive games? And I'm thinking, are you kidding me? You know the answer to the question. You've answered your question. Everybody would prefer that, but that wasn't working. So ultimately the league says, all right, well, maybe the kids will be hungrier. And by the way, in the game I saw the game they ultimately lost, I think, by 7 or 8. They were competitive, and there was that's trouble.
There you go. Draymond Green calling?
It might be Draymond Green. Come on. Why can't this thing? I usually have it on silent. Anyway, the fact of the matter is, this whole concept was brought about because the players could not be trusted to clean up their own mess. So the feeling was maybe some of the superstar, long in the tooth players will be embarrassed enough when they see a little bit more effort from the kids, right? And we saw the game I saw. We saw some of that.
Yep,
we actually did. I still wouldn't say it was exactly
Game 7
basketball. No, but it was. I thought a clear upgrade. As gimmicky as it is, and as much as I'd like to see the whole weekend go away, but how? I mean, is Draymond Green that unaware? I mean, in all seriousness, that he's worrying about nonsense like, think of the integrity of the. Think about this: the integrity of All-Star game scoring records.
Yeah.
Think about how absurd that sounds under the current situation, where nobody was guarding anybody. So again, I've proven it over the years. I can get PO'd about some ridiculous stuff. But even I can't do this with a straight face and pretend to mean it. Like, poor Victor. Now it's not a regular sized game of up to 40 points, and you want to go after some of these records? Barkley said it. I mean, you make a mess. Somebody's got to clean it up. And at that point, the league says, all right, well, let's just try this and see where the thing goes. Notwithstanding, and I'm sure we'll talk about this with Double T also, what took place. I started getting texts from regulars, including the Chief. The Chief was outraged
By
whatever
Wemby and Chris
nonsense.
Paul?
Yeah, the Wemby. So they deliberately missed shots or just threw the ball against.
Just to go faster.
Yeah. And again, this seems sensible to you? This is an exhibition, All-Star weekend, not even the day of the game, and you think you're outsmarting everybody with it? Well, that's got Chris Paul written all over it, because Chris Paul does think he's the smartest person in the room. I mean, he drives, in fact, even many former fellow players crazy for that very reason. So I don't think this was a Wembanyama operation.
No, but he has to go along with it because he's the kid.
Exactly right. Even though he's the guy, well, Chris Paul said this is what we got to do.
Yeah, here's an idea.
That's what we had to do. But it's like, what? Seriously?
I know.
And again, you can get aroused over the car if you want. It's the stupidest, and it's a player no one still has ever heard of other than All-Star Weekend. How is this not farce? How does this improve the game or prove anything other than what I say? Get rid of all of it. Get rid of every bit of it and just make it 48 hours, 72 hours in Vegas, just a party that never stops.
Right. Well, and actually, you can do it in other towns.
You can, that's true.
Bring it around. We talked about it late last week because there were already the pre-stories of how do you fix the All-Star game.
Yes.
And it's beyond fixable and that's fine, but I think everybody just needs to admit it. The NFL finally admitted it and said, we're just going to do a big skills challenge and bring everybody to Orlando and put it on TV. It'll be great. And I actually like the skills stuff on Saturday night. I'm upset at Chris Paul and Wemby for ruining the integrity of that because now we got to fix that. But the hockey community, though, was right on time, though, on Saturday.
Well,
I didn't get to tell you that.
We're going to get to that because they're for my money, and it's coming up already via the text line, they're getting a little too haughty. They're getting way, way too haughty. Even Florio suddenly has become a hockey guy, and I think has missed a spectacularly important point if you're actually going to turn this into a game of comparison. So let's get to that. First, a grand in your hand opportunity.
Not today because it's President's Day. We will have that tomorrow.
And back tomorrow with that. Trent Tucker, bottom of the hour. And as I mentioned, Johnny Athletic at 5.
It is Ryan Seacrest here. There was a recent social media trend which consisted of flying on a plane with no music, no movies, no entertainment. But a better trend would be going to ChumbaCasino.com. It's like having a mini social casino in your pocket. Chumba Casino has over 100 online casino-style games, all absolutely free. It's the most fun you can have online and on a plane. So grab your free welcome bonus now at ChumbaCasino.com. Sponsored by Chumba Casino.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
A calendar.
Hey, you know what? I think the commissioner of the National Basketball Association, David Stern, and others should consider. We're always looking for, is there a way to fix it? I don't think there is. But the more I think about it, maybe what you do is, before the game, you plan 3 or 4 of your best superstars, plan fights for the first 10 seconds of the game. How about that? Do you think that would change everything?
It'd get people going.
You think it would get people going?
Maybe Draymond could be a part of that.
Oh, he would love to be a part of that for sure. I don't think he'd have to. He'd volunteer, right? I don't think anybody would have to ask him. USA versus Canada was better than the whole NBA All-Star weekend. You're not sending that with a straight face, right? You're not. You tell me, please, 612 guy, you're not. You're just trying to get me going. And in that sense, you perhaps did. People do understand that we are comparing apples and oranges, correct?
I don't think that they do, but
they should.
They should.
Are we aware of how much criticism the basic NHL All-Star games have taken lately as well? From a lot of hockey people, including Lou Nanne, who said he couldn't even watch it anymore. I mean, it didn't keep him up at night. He said, well, it's not hockey. It doesn't do it. I'm not going to pay attention to it. So stop. I understand when you're in the parochial world of hockey, you feel unappreciated. You feel defensive. You feel like everybody's always against you. This event has been better than one might have expected. It would have been even better if the stupidity that started the game, pre-planned, hadn't taken place. There's not anybody who's going to convince me that under any circumstances, that's professional. It's not. I don't, and in all honesty, it doesn't even have anything to do with the violence that's, you could say, cooked into the game. Nothing. So please, don't lecture about how wonderful it was compared to the NBA All-Star Game. NHL All-Star Games have been brutal to watch lately. This is a different event. Do we all agree there might be a feeling that there's a little bit more at stake? USA. I
think that's the whole point.
Canada, yes. Finland and Sweden, correct? Were those the 4 teams that started it?
Sounds familiar.
So,
yeah.
I mean, come on, people. Don't do this. Enjoy the event. Celebrate it for what it's been, which has been great. It's been outstanding, but notwithstanding the stupidity that started it. And I've actually heard I might be done with Chip Scoggins.
Really?
Yeah, I heard Chip earlier today. He was on with Chad, and he said, look, I guess I'm a hypocrite because I hate it when it happens during games, but I got into this. I got into the fighting. I go, what's happened to you, Chip? Have you been here so long?
Yeah,
you've been
25
beaten down
years.
By the hockey community?
They got to him.
Oh, my God. Well, no, what's made it interesting, I think, is just the competition.
Right.
The physicality. This is everything that an all-star game isn't. But it's not the same kind of event. If it were, it would be no different than the NBA All-Star Game. That's the point. And that might be the genius of doing it, even though this is supposed to be a one-shot deal, because we got the Olympics next year, right? I think, whatever.
Yeah, 26.
So, 26. So, I don't, please, from the hockey community, don't stick your chest out like, well, see the difference? Yes, we see the difference. But if we're doing a comparison, it has to be NBA All-Star Game versus NHL All-Star Game. And there's no meaningful difference at this point. The only thing the NHL has ahead of the NBA in that regard is their players are more likely to play. And it wasn't a good look that with, 4 seconds to go before the first game, LeBron says, I'm out.
Yep.
And I guess Anthony Edwards also about out.
Has a groin issue. Which got the comments you would expect online talking about Anthony Edwards' groin. Those were some good replies.
Yeah.
But Saturday night, it was right on time because I didn't really watch much of the Saturday night stuff for the NBA. Watched a little bit of it. And then you saw the Chris Paul stuff and the Wembanyama stuff. So I just did the obligatory, how do you fix NBA All-Star Saturday?
Right.
My column. Because there's got to be a think piece about everything. And right on time, 9 responses, including one from Gorg that said, watch Canada, USA, 4 nations. And then it was like, boom, roasted. Like, get him, Gorg. Like, this whole thing. I'm like, I am watching it, first of all. Second of all, relax.
We all think it's been great.
It's the greatest event ever since Lake Placid. And we all love it.
Well, somebody's saying, do you not understand the 4 nations was a replacement for the All-Star Game this time? But as far as I was told, they're not going to keep repeating it. Has that changed? Maybe it will on the basis of how well it went.
Maybe they will.
But then you do run into the issue of injuries. But my understanding was this was a one-shot deal. And in fact, Louis felt it was too late in the season. And I think Russo largely agreed with that as well. So are you going to keep going back to this well? Because if this is literally the replacement every year, then yeah, you found something that's pretty good. But that's leaving out the fact that NHL All-Star games have not been any better. And that, as I said, this I thought was supposed to be an absolute one-shot deal. The 4 Nations tournament, writes Solon Blaine, will lose a ton of steam once multiple stars go down, killing teams' chances at a cup. Yeah, that's the rub of it.
That's part of it.
And that's the rub of finding the balance in any of these All-Star games, right? There's no question injury, especially in a sport like hockey, certainly football, and even basketball to a degree, is we don't want people. There's too much at stake now.
There is, financially for the players and
that's
for
undeniable.
The teams.
So, that's why I think the answer is to blow it up. But I will say again, I think the NBA. Now, I didn't watch the final game.
Nor did I.
Because I started getting into the Saturday Night Live, anniversary program. More on that later, too. But the one I saw, I saw efforts to stop people defensively, steals, things like that. which I said, well, it's not great, but it's a lot better than it was. And like a lot of people, I was rooting for the Rising Stars to win it. And I thought if they hadn't just, again, tried, we're just going to keep flinging up threes, anytime they drove to the basket, they scored. I'm thinking, I get it, 3 points is more than 2. Mm-hmm. But if you jack up 3 straight threes and they're all bad shots,
you get 0 points.
That's 0 points. If you drive to the basket 3 straight times because nobody is stopping you on the other side among the veterans, that's 6 points. So that's equal to 2 3-pointers, isn't it?
It would be.
In effect,
yes.
Even I can do that math. So that's the part that surprised me. But it's just, I mean, even Florio got into it. Well, hockey's doing it right. Well, yeah, if this is what they go to all the time, it's a great idea. Now, again, my guess is, though, the longer it goes, the more likely you're going to have injuries. And then you're in the end, my fear is you're going to go back in the wrong direction. Because even in hockey, the tough guy sport, they'll go, we can't keep losing players like this.
Well, and is Russia invited?
Isn't it for the cup?
Is anybody else invited besides these 4 countries? Are we going to have like an entry tournament to get into the Four Nations Cup?
Yeah.
When are we going to do that?
That's a great well, that's
not very inclusive.
It's not.
Of the entire league.
It's absolutely
There's some pretty
not.
good Russian hockey players I've heard.
Well, you want to talk about upping the ante. Now, it wouldn't be like the old days of the commies. But it would definitely raise it another level as well. You're 100% right about that. So
it's feeling though 1980 like between us and Canada though right now.
All right.
With the booing of the anthem and the tariffs, it's got similar 1980 vibes to Russia, U.S., the Cold War.
A little bit, yeah. No, almost like identical, you could say.
Very similar.
Yeah, very similar.
Yeah.
I wish we would bring those days, but then that's probably a little selfish because there's larger issues.
Not good for the world.
It's probably not good for the world.
No.
It might be better for sports, but not quite as good. All right, look. We're going to get into all of this with Double T Trent Tucker. But to be honest, I wanted to start with the controversy that my sources say Guardsy went into heavily on Friday. And that, by the way, I just shake my head. I mean, to this moment, correct me if I'm wrong, my former newspaper has not written a single story on what happened between Hopkins and Wayzata, a boys basketball game. That was Thursday night?
Thursday night.
Not a word. Which almost seems like it's impossible based on what a significant prep story it is. You spent a lot of time on it. Double T used to have a job where he had to mess with these sorts of controversies. It ended about as poorly as it could have. And we'll get his thoughts on that. As I understand it, the people who are trying to report this story say that I believe on the Wayzata side, there have already been some punishments levied within the team. Do we know if that involves coaches, players, what?
I think it's just coaches.
Okay.
I think it's multiple coaches. And again, I haven't seen anything like reported, or even announced.
Yeah, so,
I've heard from people that are following it and people that would know.
And then the other question for me, that there's the climate that was seemingly created throughout that game, in part by coaches' deportment. But then there's what looked to me like, and correct me if I'm wrong, a student section following the Wayzata players into the locker room.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Pretty close. And that's probably the part I didn't spend enough time on. I was so annoyed by the adults.
That's unconscionable. You can't have that sort of situation, regardless of what has led up to it. So, Double T, the great thing about Double T is his head stays cool. He is very smart on these sorts of issues because he's lived them, and he keeps cool. And so he'll give us very rational, but I think blunt assessment of what he has heard about that, his own experiences in those situations, and I'm sure we'll get to some all-star stuff as well. Double T is next here.
Step into the world of power, loyalty, and luck.
I'm going to make him an offer he can't refuse.
With family, cannolis, and spins mean everything.
Now, you want to get mixed up in the family business.
Introducing The Godfather at ChumbaCasino.com. Test your luck in the shadowy world of The Godfather slot.
Someday, I will call upon you to do a service for me.
Play The Godfather now at ChumbaCasino.com.
Welcome to the family.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
All right, so Guardsy spent, I think, a pretty good amount of time on the Friday show when I was out and out of town on the madness that took place at the, well, I guess not just at the end, but throughout, it appears, the Hopkins-Wayzata game. That was Thursday night in Hopkins, right? 77-76 was the final. There were controversies about late calls that were not made, about the officiating. There was much said, not so much written, except I guess by Ryan James. He's been all over this story. Gopher Illustrated guy, correct? That the coaches, there seem to be reports that the coaches were at various times out of control throughout. And then there was the madness late from the crowd that some of the crowd seemed to follow the Wayzata players in or close to the locker room as well. Now, I happened to listen, because I'm loyal in the zone, to some of Double T while I was out of town on my never-ending quest to learn more and more about Irish dancing, because when you think Barrero, you think Irish dancing, I think, for sure. And my daughter was participating in North American Nationals in St. Louis. But I got to Double T, and I thought he had a lot of wise things to say about this particular story, and thought of him immediately to make him part of the weekday today with the All-Star game to discuss as well. Double T, good to have you back. Thanks for the time on a very frigid Minneapolis Monday.
Hey, thanks for having me.
All right, so I don't know if you've been able to piece together any more than you thought you knew or heard or read regarding the Thursday night nonsense. But regardless, give me your thoughts on, as a guy who was close to 5 years, right? I mean, this was in your wheelhouse. This was part of the job you had as director of district athletics for Minneapolis and the Minneapolis public schools. What struck you about this story, and what concerned you the most about it?
Well, we are there, as administrators and faculty members, is to set the right example for our kids. It's because the kids are the future. And, they lean on us, they look at us to give them the right message. And when we are out of control, as administrators and faculty leaders, it forces the kids to get out of control. And that sends a very, very bad message. And as an athletic director, at that point in time, you have to make sure that your coaches understand the code of conduct and that they are leaders and representatives, not just of themselves, but of the school that they serve as well, along with the kids they serve. So it's disheartening to see incidents like that take place. It's because I know when I was working in Minneapolis, we had some of those things take place as well. But I was well connected to my coaches and to my athletic directors in the buildings at that time, and they knew exactly how to deal with those situations when they came up.
And for you, that meant what? In terms of trying to hold the right people accountable, conversations you would have, suspensions, threats of suspensions, what should follow in a case, like in a situation like this one, which seemed to just spin out of control by the end of the game?
Well, you have to go back, to the rules that you have set in place, for your coaches. And if they have violated certain rules, well, then suspensions is the next thing that come along with that. It's because you just can't have that. That is unacceptable. And there's no reason for any coach, or especially parents, to get out of control at a high school basketball game. Because, the kids look up to you. We are trying to prepare them, for the 21st century. And when we act out of control, that gives them the leeway to do the same thing.
One of the other things you talked about on Saturday is what obligation the officials have. And this is sensitive because, as you know better than I, they're not very well compensated. Sometimes it's just hard to find enough individuals who are willing to do it, because obviously there's a feeling that there's more and more heat coming from coaches and players than ever before. But I thought you raised a pretty important point, that what the best officials at least attempt to do, and sometimes this is hard to pull off, but what they attempt to do is set a tone earlier in the game, even if necessary, to stop the game, bring the coaches together and say, guys, I get it. This is an intense rivalry. This is a hell of a matchup. But I'm here to tell you, or we're here to tell you, we ain't going to keep playing if you guys don't be a little bit more selective in what you're doing with us and working up this crowd.
That's 100% right. And I believe that the officials are the ones that control the game. And like you mentioned before, for sure, I know they don't make a whole lot of money, but they are the ones that set the tone on what this night is going to look like. And if they feel at the start that the coaches are out of control, pull them to the side and ask them the questions. How long do you guys want to stay around? And the guy said, what do you mean? If you continue with this behavior, we have a place for you. And it would not be on the bench. But it's as you mentioned, it's a tricky thing. It's a hard thing. It's because some of these officials who are who are refereeing high school basketball, they feel like, hey, we don't have the power to do that.
Yep, right.
And I would tell all my officials, you do have the power to do that.
That's key. That's a real key message that has to be delivered, right? Is that I'm going to trust your judgment. And if you think you got to jump in, I've got your back. I'm not going to cave to pressure. And people say, well, how can you stop the game like that? Or how can you end the game like that? You got to have people in positions of authority with a backbone and a spine so that those officials do feel like they're going to be backed up with whatever decision they feel in the heat of the moment they're compelled to take and make.
Well, I can tell you when I was working in Minneapolis, and the one thing I would say, I would go to my supervisor at the time and say, tonight I may have to make a very difficult choice.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to let you know up front that I have to make this choice. This kid is not going to play, and we're going to catch a lot of heat for this kid not playing. But at the end of the day, it's the right thing to do. Now, I'm the guy that's in charge at this moment. He has violated everything that we stand for. I'm going to let you know, are you standing with me or not? He says, Trent, I hired you for one reason, is to make the right decisions for our kids. And whatever you decide to do, I got your back 100%. And when you know that the people that you are working for and working with, when they are going to stand with you when you do what's right, then it becomes a whole lot easier to make that decision.
Gargi, I want you to jump in on this part of it because you had a lot to say about it Friday. I got a lot of really good reaction that you handled it brilliantly. And how much of it for you was because what I've seen on the video, I'm playing catch up on this story, but what I've seen on video seems to indicate that at least some of the players did not want to shake hands. They basically just wanted to leave the court. So where does that enter into the escalation of this thing? What part of your rant was related to that?
Not a ton, actually. The players basically left the line because the Wayzata coach told them to.
Okay.
And that's where it was already at a 10, like the last couple minutes of the game. I mean, It was crazy the entire game. The coaches were, specifically coaches for Hopkins, were on the refs immediately, like first possession, like directing traffic, doing the whole bit. And so I think that also annoyed the Wayzata coaches. And then the coaches were screaming back and forth. On that controversial non-call, there's about 90 seconds where staffs are having to be held back from each other while the refs try to figure out time where they're
From each other,
yeah. And so the handshake line thing, though, definitely probably took it to like a 13 or a 14. And Hopkins kids are already on the court because their team just won the game.
They're celebrating, yes.
They're storming the court. But then they start following, and a garbage can is thrown at Wayzata coach, Wayzata players. And so a ton wasn't spent on that because I thought what set the entire environment was the 90 seconds straight up where coaches are just screaming at each other while the refs are trying to figure out what's going on.
So, Double T, there's two issues here. I guess one is, it's not new that coaches get involved. Are they more involved? Does the Hopkins reputation in this regard deserved? Because as you, I'm sure, know from first-hand experience, there's a lot of resentment in this market about that program. Part of it's envy and jealousy. I don't think there's any question. But part of it is a feeling of they just sort of feel like they are entitled kind of to do whatever they want. So does that deserve? Do you think that was when you were there overdone, or what do you make of that part of the story?
Well, when you're considered to be the best, there's a certain way that you should have to act. And if someone doesn't like you because of a certain way how you do things, you feel like they may be jealous of you, okay, that's a part of the game. That's a part of the situation that we all face at some point in time. But how do you handle prosperity? How do you handle that moment? You are the guy as a head coach. You are the leader of young people. no matter what the circumstances may be with you and somebody else, you still have to keep yourself under control and do what's right for those kids. Because at the end of the day, that's why we take these jobs.
That's supposed
we don't take these jobs to get. We don't take these jobs to get rich. We don't take these jobs to retire in 2 years. We take these jobs because we want to help young kids have the best chance to make it in life. That's why we do these jobs.
Ryan James has been on all over this story from the beginning. Here's what he tweeted out yesterday. For those who are curious, multiple sources have said that Wayzata will have a suspension or suspensions for their boys' basketball home game against East Ridge on Wednesday. Hopkins played at Minneapolis Washburn on Saturday. There were no suspensions for anybody on their team. Now, again, I'll defer to you, Garzi, as well. I don't think you do it just to do it, to even it up. It depends on behavior, but that is striking a lot of people as rather missing the point, inconsistent, if what you're saying is accurate, that both coaches were all over everybody. So, Garzi, before you jump in, Double T, what do you? Does that disappoint you at all?
Yeah, especially if the other team crossed the line as well.
Mm-hmm.
Well, then that's going to the governing body. Okay, then you guys are not seeing this thing, from the right standpoint. It's because if one team is acting up and another team is acting up, then the punishment and the penalty would have to serve both of them the same.
The popular perception is that parents and fans are crazier than they've ever been. Sometimes I think that's true. Sometimes I think, well, it's just everything is so more easily reported in real time. We've got, X, we've got Facebook, we've got Instagram, got a million ways. And so we see what ends up being accentuated is the worst behavior out there. So you've been around a while now. Do you sense that there is greater delusion on the part of parents that the days of parents, at least what we like to think of, when parents would try to hold themselves more accountable and their own kids more accountable, as in, don't go after the coach. Do what the coach says you need to do to get better. Stop making this, about somebody else other than yourself. That we've got more and more parents who have become so delusional and so trapped in this culture of, the AAU culture of, man, my kid might be my meal ticket out and whatever he wants, he gets. And that it contributes to this, well, I am going to lose my mind at games because this could affect the future of my kid. What do you see and what do you think?
You have that. I mean, you're right on. You're spot on with that. I can look at my situation. I have two boys that play hockey, and we all know how intense, youth hockey can be. And parents spend a ton of money, tournaments, traveling tournaments, special equipment, and skating coaches, shooting coaches. So there's a lot of money being spent, and we all understand that. So the intensity is very high. Is because, you want to try to put your kid in the best situation possible. But still, at the end of the day, you're the parent. You're the one that has to stay under control. You're the one that has to make the right decision. No matter how intense it gets, you still got to think about my behavior today. How would that affect my kid tomorrow? Because you're still the parent. And I've seen some parents, Dan, on some of these hockey trips that I've been on, from different teams here or there, where parents have lost it.
Yeah.
Sometimes they might have had a few extra drinks here or there on a Friday night or a Saturday night somewhere out of town, and then they lose control, and then that's a bad scene for the kids, who are playing in those tournaments. So I think at the end of the day, no matter how intense or how much money you spend or how emotional the games become, the parents still have to keep themselves under control.
Double T, Trent Tucker, kind enough to join us. Johnny Athletic will join at 5:30. This story will continue to follow, maybe even have some other people on relating to it. NBA All-Star Weekend, of course, another one is in the books. And, Double T, the obvious issue is the game itself savable? They went to this new format where we got some kids playing. Maybe they'll try a little harder, which they did, I thought. Maybe they'll force the veterans to remember what they're supposed to do. As a guy who's been around this game a long time and watched a lot of All-Star games, are we just unrealistic to think that given the amount of money involved, that we can turn back the clock and go back to the days when the NBA All-Star Game was a damn good product and was very competitive. What do you think?
It's going to be too hard to change it today. I think maybe 5-10 years from now, when there's a new level of teaching with the young players who are coming up and how the game should be played, we might get back to that then, but I can't see it happening today.
Because?
All the things you just talked about.
Yeah.
There's too much money involved. There's too many other factors that has taken these players away from the game in terms of a highly competitive, spirited outcome. And when you have to put money on the line to get guys to play in a game that they say they love from the day they were 6 and 7 years of age, and when you have to entice them with something that they're already making, well, then it's too hard to turn the clock back at this time.
Did you watch any of it last night?
I did. I was interested in watching to see how this new format was going to play out. I thought it was better.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was much better than what I saw a year ago. And hopefully, that as we move into the next 5 to 10 years, that the younger players who will be in these all-star type game situations will adopt a different mindset and entertain the fans a little bit differently.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. By the way, I think it's your guys. Is he 63 today, Michael Jordan? Today is his birthday.
Yeah, he is. Yeah, he should be 63. Yeah,
62. 62 today. He was born in 1963. So how do you think Michael Jordan? How does he celebrate his birthdays? How does a man who has everything celebrate his birthday?
Well, I would think that. See, I didn't get a text this morning at 5 a.m. So that means that he may not have gone fishing today. So he might be doing something different.
Is he bored? Do you think he's bored or not? Do you think he's okay?
No, I mean, Dan, I think he's at a period right now in his life where he's just enjoying life. He's really, really enjoying himself, and like you say, he's the guy he's got everything. And what do you get a guy on his 62nd birthday that has everything that he could possibly want? But no, the last time we spoke, maybe a week or so ago, he was just playing a little golf here and there when he could. And, when the weather is right and the weather is nice, he gets on his boat and he goes out and he hits the lake or the ocean or whatever it may be, and he may go fish for the entire day.
The All-Star games of yesteryear, so much more enjoyable. Remember, like when players would be frozen out, when Jordan was remember the stories about Isaiah and those guys freezing out Mike? That was when it felt juicier, felt like there was more at stake. I don't think anybody would care enough anymore to freeze somebody out in 2025.
No, because everybody's friendly now. Like you said, when you look at youth sports throughout the summer, all the kids from around the country, they get a chance to play together. They get a chance to play in the same tournaments. When we were growing up, I read about certain guys here or there, but I never got a chance to see them unless I went to play against them in college or they were on my team. So we were never able to develop those friendly relationships before we met each other on the court. And back in that day, Magic Johnson and Larry Bird, they wanted to beat each other. They got themselves prepared in the off season just to beat Magic Johnson, or Magic Johnson to beat Larry Bird come NBA championship time. So there was no love lost between those two guys once they hit the floor.
Real quick, one quick Wolves issue. I don't think they play again till Friday. I think that's when they're back in action. Give me your overarching view of where this team is headed this year. Are you queasy? Do you still see, all right, get the guys who are out injured back? You saw some signs. Maybe Randall was fitting in a little bit better. The team's record has actually been a little bit better. We've had these weird ups and downs as we saw towards the end of the right before the All-Star break. What do you make of them? Is there any hope you think for them to make a run, or do you think that's unrealistic based on what you've seen? Now that we pretty much know this is going to be the roster.
Well, it's when you look at this team, they have a lot of ebbs and flows, and I think it's going to come down to what kind of team will show up defensively every single night. They're going to have nights where the offense is just not working, and you got some new kids and some young guys coming in off the bench. With guys being hurt, their offense may not be where it needs to be. But if they can bring the right mindset and get back to playing that consistent, hard defense that we saw a year ago, then they could make a run come playoff time. But if the defense stays inconsistent, it may be hard for them to make those advances.
Help me out on one other thing from the All-Star Weekend. What's the point of having a slam dunk contest if it involves nonsense like cars on the court or players that, with all due respect, no one ever has heard of except during All-Star Weekend? It just doesn't do anything for me, Double T.
Well, the best players in the league does not want to participate anymore.
Yeah.
So the NBA, they still like the slam dunk contest. They still like All-Star Weekend, and so they're trying to find as many good stories as they can. Let's see how this new format works out. If this doesn't change anything going forward, I would be okay just scrapping All-Star Weekend. Just give the guys a week off.
There you go.
The guys who are All-Stars at the mid-season juncture of the season.
Yeah, that's it.
And then just move on to the second half of the season.
We were saying, Gargi and I, have a 3-day weekend for all the beautiful people and the sponsors. Pick a different venue, a different city every year. Vegas, Indianapolis. I assume they probably want warmer weather than us. And just stop with the pretense. Just take because it's not bad. It's really not basketball that's going on. So,
yeah, you're absolutely right. I agree with you 100%. And it's a wasted. It's just a wasted opportunity to make the game better. And if the guys are not willing to participate, and you can see some of these guys really don't want to be there. If they can get a week off, now I got to fly to San Francisco. I got to deal with, a lot of people, checking the hotels, deal with this, deal with that. I got to get all the arrangements for my family and kids and friends and all this stuff.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, they just don't want to play. And if they don't want to play, it's going to be bad for the NBA product going forward. At this stage in time, if I can't see any changes on how we can get better, let's just scrap the All-Star Weekend, give these guys a week off like I just said, and then get ready for the second half push.
What's the most expensive cigar Michael Jordan ever presented you with?
The numbers are too big.
Now, if anybody could, it'd be him, right?
Right.
One of his houses in the Chicago area, he ended up taking didn't he take like a $15, $20 million hit? And of course, that's that's meaningless, right?
Not sure he noticed.
It didn't really change anything, did it?
Maybe for a guy like myself, that's a big hit.
That's it.
For him,
it's
just another day at the job, right?
100%. Always great to catch up. I appreciate it. I enjoyed listening to you Saturday. Loved you again today, and we'll stay in touch as always. Thanks, Double T.
Anytime, Dan. Thanks.
Thanks, man. That is Trent Tucker on a couple of, I think, pretty timely subjects. I would love to hear, what are the odds, Guardsy? I wonder if Guardsy got people who said they were at the game. Did you get some texts from people who were there?
Yeah, during the show as well as throughout the weekend.
Because if people want to get back into the subject, please do so. Because it sounds as if, let's break for the top of the hour. It sounds a little bit like Double T's biggest grievance might be yours as well. But we'll get back into that. I do want to cover the very latest on this plane mishap involving a Delta Airlines regional jet that was a flight out of the Minneapolis-St. Paul airport earlier today and ended up flipped over on the runway in Toronto where it was supposed to land. And we'll give you the latest information we have on that story as well. Don't go.
It is Ryan Seacrest here. There was a recent social media trend which consisted of flying on a plane with no music, no movies, no entertainment. But a better trend would be going to ChumbaCasino.com. It's like having a mini social casino in your pocket. Chumba Casino has over 100 online casino-style games, all absolutely free. It's the most fun you can have online and on a plane. So grab your free welcome bonus now at ChumbaCasino.com. Sponsored by Chumba Casino.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions apply.